They'll never see the nights that built you. They'll never hear the thoughts you had to fight just to start again. Because the real work, the kind that changes everything, doesn't happen when they're watching. It happens here. In the hours no one tracks. In the moments that don't trend. While they scroll, you're building. While they talk, you're learning. While they wait for applause, you're earning peace. They'll call it luck one day, but luck never looked this tired. It never cried this quietly. It never stayed this long in the dark. Because what's built in the dark isn't fragile. It's tested. Every hour alone. Every maybe this isn't worth it. Every why am I still doing this? That's where the real ones are made. You learn to stop explaining. You learn that silence doesn't mean failure. It means focus. No audience. No applause. Just the sound of your own breathing. And the quiet hum of unfinished dreams. That's where greatness grows. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows that ask, will you still build when nobody's watching? Most people don't quit because it's hard. They quit because it's quiet. Because there's no proof yet. No validation. No recognition to carry them through. But the ones who make it, they learn to live quietly. To work through the waiting. To believe before the world believes back. And in that dark, they find something stronger than motivation. They find identity. You don't need to be loud to be legendary. You just need to outlast the noise. Because one day, the same silence that tested you will introduce you. And when that day comes, the world will think you came out of nowhere. But you'll know the truth. You were built in the dark. And every empire, every masterpiece, every success story begins the same way. Not with applause, but with a quiet start. Chapter 1. The Quiet Start. They don't tell you how quiet it is at the beginning. When the dream is still fragile. When your belief trembles like something that doesn't know its own strength yet. There's no music in the background. No applause. No guarantees. Just you, and a choice. People think greatness begins with clarity. It doesn't. It begins with confusion, followed by a decision that says, I'm doing this anyway. Because at first, there's no map. No one is waiting to clap. No one is coming to save you. It's just you, standing between who you are and who you could become. That's the part nobody prepares you for. The silence before the story starts. It's so tempting to wait for something bigger to happen first. To wait until you feel ready. But readiness is a myth. Nobody ever feels ready. They just get tired of waiting. The truth is, beginnings don't feel like beginnings. They feel like endings. Of excuses, of comfort, of the version of yourself that stayed afraid too long. You don't know it yet, but the moment you start moving, life starts listening. Not loudly, just enough to whisper back, I see you trying. Every builder has this moment, the night they start, the night they decide, I'll build, even if nobody notices. It doesn't happen in a crowd. It happens in your chest, in a room where nobody's watching, where your fears echo back louder than your motivation. But this is where all great stories begin. In the quiet. In the ordinary. In the unseen effort that never makes the highlight reel. People think the hardest part of building is the middle. But it's not. The hardest part is convincing yourself to begin, knowing there's no guarantee that it'll work. The quiet start tests you. It's not loud enough to inspire you, and not painful enough to scare you away. It just waits, to see what you'll do when nothing happens right away. Every minute feels like doubt. Every hour feels like maybe you made a mistake. But if you stay long enough in that uncertainty, something starts to shift. You realize that you're not waiting for the world to move. You're training yourself to become the kind of person who moves without proof. That's where it begins. The separation between those who wish and those who build. The ones who wait for a sign and the ones who start before it arrives. You don't need momentum to begin. You need to begin to find momentum. You'll feel clumsy. You'll second-guess every step. You'll wonder if this is even the right thing. But that's what the quiet is for. To strip you of everything that's not essential. So only your real reasons remain. Beginnings feel lonely because you haven't met the version of yourself who can handle what's coming. They live at the end of this road, waiting for you to arrive. Every time you show up anyway, you get closer to them. Every time you choose the work over the worry, you become more like them. That's the secret of the dark. It doesn't demand perfection. It just asks, will you show up again tomorrow? Because that's all it takes. To be the one who starts. When everyone else is still talking about starting. You won't hear cheers. You won't see results right away. But you'll feel something. Something small but unshakable. The faint rhythm of a life that's finally in motion. The quiet heartbeat of a builder taking shape. Because the truth is, the quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is. This is the quiet start. Not the moment you knew you could, but the moment you decided you would. And somewhere in that quiet, without anyone noticing, the foundation of greatness begins to set. But soon, the quiet becomes heavier. Not because you're lost, but because you're learning to walk without applause. Chapter 2: The Weight of Obscurity. There's a point on the journey when silence stops being peaceful and starts feeling heavy. Not the kind of silence that calms you, but the kind that tests you. You start to wonder if you've been forgotten. You start to question if all this effort is actually leading anywhere. Because of obscurity, it's not just being unseen. It's being unseen while you're giving everything you have. You wake up early. You show up again. You put in the work no one claps for. And the world stays quiet, as if it hasn't noticed you're still here. That's the weight of obscurity. It's not a lack of progress. It's the presence of patience. When you start, you think you'll be rewarded for effort, that the universe will applaud consistency. But the truth? It tests consistency first. It hides results to see if you'll keep showing up when no one's watching. Every day begins to look the same. You wonder if it's even worth it. You tell yourself it's supposed to get easier, but it doesn't. Because greatness doesn't get lighter. You just get stronger. And that strength is built right here, in the shadows between faith and proof. Obscurity is cruel, because it doesn't just test your effort. It tests your identity. It whispers, if no one sees you, do you still matter? And that question cuts deep, because we've all been conditioned to chase visibility. But the ones who endure the dark, they start to see obscurity differently. They learn that being unseen isn't the same as being insignificant. It's protection. It's incubation. It's the stage of becoming, where the roots grow before the bloom. You don't realize it at first, but obscurity is mercy. It gives you space to fail quietly, to grow without judgment, to build muscle before the spotlight hits. Because fame magnifies what's already true, and if you haven't built peace in private, the noise will destroy you in public. So while everyone else is fighting to be seen, you're learning the power of being hidden. You're learning that the unseen seasons are the ones that prepare you to handle visibility. The weight of obscurity doesn't crush you. It forges you. It builds endurance, the kind that can carry real success. Because the truth is, anyone can start loud, but only the steady ones survive the silence. You can't skip this part. If you do, you'll be famous before you're formed. And fame without formation is a failure waiting for an audience. Every day in obscurity is a mirror. It shows you who you really are, when no one's looking. Do you still give your best? Do you still care when nobody claps? Because that's what defines you. Not what you do when people see you, but what do you do when they don't? The weight of obscurity teaches you humility, because it strips away the illusion that you're owed anything. You're not. Every inch must be earned. Every inch must be built. And the ones who understand that become unshakable. They stop chasing validation and start chasing mastery. They realize that obscurity isn't punishment. It's the training ground of greatness. When you finally stop fighting it, you start learning from it. You stop asking, why isn't anyone noticing? And start asking, what am I supposed to be learning here? That shift changes everything. Because when you stop needing attention, you become dangerous. You become the kind of person who builds quietly, moves intentionally, and creates things that last. That's the paradox of the dark. The moment you stop begging to be seen, you start becoming someone worth seeing. The moment you stop seeking applause, you start producing work that deserves it. You were never meant to skip the shadows. You were meant to master them. Because only those who've carried the weight of obscurity can handle the weight of influence. So don't rush it. Don't try to escape the dark too early. You're not buried. You're planted. And when the time comes, you won't need to announce yourself. Your work will. But before the bloom comes the breaking, the part where the weight becomes too heavy to carry, and you have to decide whether to quit or to grow stronger. Chapter 3: The Work That Breaks You. At some point, the work stops feeling noble. The dream that once kept you awake starts making you tired. You've been consistent. You've shown up. You've done everything right. And still, it feels like nothing's changing. That's the moment every builder meets the wall. The invisible point between effort and exhaustion, where belief begins to crack under the weight of time. It's not that you want to quit. It's that you're not sure why you're still here. Nobody talks about this part. The part where passion fades, and all that's left is discipline. The part where you stop working because you feel inspired, and start working because you said you would. This is where most people break. Not because they're weak, but because they expected the process to care about their feelings. But the dark doesn't care how tired you are. It only asks one question. Can you still move? You'll know you've hit this season when your best effort gets no response. When progress feels invisible. When every step forward feels like walking through mud. Slow, heavy, unglamorous. That's the real test. Not when it's hard, but when it's quietly hard. When no one's watching. And quitting would go unnoticed. Because pain in public earns sympathy. But pain in private builds character. You'll start questioning everything. Am I still good enough? Did I make a mistake? Maybe it's not supposed to be this hard. But what if it is? What if the hardness is the point? The work that breaks you isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to remove what can't carry the weight of where you're going. You thought the process was here to reward you. It's here to rebuild you. To strip away the parts of you that only show up when things are easy. To teach you how to work. Without applause. Without speed. Without certainty. Because the truth is, you can't build something strong while staying soft in your commitment. The work that breaks you is the same work that hardens your resolve. This is where you start to understand the cost. The cost of consistency. The cost of patience. The cost of faith when it's no longer exciting to believe. Nobody warns you that progress sometimes feels like pain. That becoming better can feel like falling apart. But here's the secret. It's not punishment. It's precision. You're not being broken to lose yourself. You're being broken to find the version of you that can hold more. It's like the clay before it's fired. It has to endure pressure before it becomes permanent. And that pressure, it's not a threat. It's proof that you're being shaped. You're not behind. You're becoming. You're not stuck. You're solidifying. Every disappointment is a weight added to your foundation. Every delay is endurance being built in silence. You don't grow lighter. You grow stronger. There's a beauty in this stage, one most people never experience. Because they leave too early. They quit in the middle of the masterpiece. But if you stay, if you let the work break you open instead of break you down, something shifts. You stop needing results to prove your worth. You stop begging for outcomes that match your effort. Instead, you start to trust the wait. You start to understand that it's not breaking you anymore. It's building you differently. That's how resilience is born. Not from success, but from staying steady in the stretch. Every failure refines you. Every setback strengthens you. Every day you don't give up turns into another layer of power. It doesn't get easier. You get clearer. You stop asking when it'll be over, and start asking what it's trying to teach you. The work that breaks you teaches you to bend. to adapt, to stop needing to control every outcome. It teaches you patience by taking away your timeline. It teaches you strength by forcing you to hold what once felt unbearable. And it teaches you grace, the quiet kind, the kind that whispers, "I survived this." This is the fire before the formation, the pain before the proof. And if you can endure this part, if you can learn to keep moving when nothing moves back, you'll realize something profound. You were never just building a dream. You were building you. And once you've survived the breaking, the work doesn't get louder. It just gets quieter, steadier, more disciplined. Because that's when you learn. Real progress isn't loud. It's invisible. Chapter 4: The Discipline of Invisible Progress. After the breaking, there's no applause, no reward, no grand comeback moment. Just silence, and a choice. To start again. But this time, not with fire, with focus. Because the truth is, most people survive the breaking, but few have the discipline to rebuild afterward. Discipline is what you do when motivation forgets your name. It's not loud. It's not emotional. It's not about being inspired. It's about showing up anyway, even when it doesn't look like it's working. It's brushing your teeth in the dark, building the bridge one unseen brick at a time, trusting that every repetition is rewriting who you are. Invisible progress doesn't look like progress at all. It looks like the same routine, the same effort, the same silence. But if you pay attention, really pay attention, you'll notice it. Tiny shifts, subtle strength, moments that used to break you, and now barely move you. That's growth. So quiet. It doesn't need validation. You used to chase results. Now you chase rhythm. You've learned that success isn't built in a day. It's built in the days no one remembers. Invisible progress isn't glamorous. It's repetition. It's refined. It's the boring part that nobody posts about. And the reason the few who endure build lives that last. You'll know you've reached this stage when you stop counting how long it's taking and start focusing on how much you're learning. When the question shifts from, "Why isn't it happening yet?" to, "How do I keep getting better while I wait?" That's when you're no longer chasing outcomes. You're becoming the kind of person who creates them. Discipline isn't punishment. It's self-respect in motion. It's the daily promise you keep with your future self, even when your present self is tired, distracted, or unsure. Discipline whispers what motivation screams. It doesn't say, "You can do this." It says, "You've done this before. Get back up." There's a reason the world rarely sees progress happen. Because real growth hides on purpose. It doesn't need a crowd. It needs consistency. Every step you take, every early morning, every late night, every moment you choose the work instead of the excuse, they all compound silently. Invisible progress is compound interest for your character. You won't see it until one day. You'll look up and realize you've become the kind of person you used to envy. Not because you forced it, but because you stayed. You stayed in the routine. You stayed through the boredom. You stayed through the doubt. You stopped chasing intensity and started mastering consistency. That's what separates the builders from the dreamers. Dreamers wait for a feeling. Builders wait for results. And while everyone else is chasing the next spark, you're building the flame. Invisible progress feels slow, because it's building something permanent. If it came fast, it would leave fast. So when it feels like nothing's changing, remember, your patience is proof of alignment. Every quiet effort is a seed that eventually becomes a scene. Someone else will call it overnight success. But you'll know better. You'll know the truth. You built it in the dark. Invisible progress is sacred. It's not meant to be flaunted. It's meant to be felt. Because there's something deeply human about doing good work in silence. It reminds you that what you're building was never about attention. It was about becoming. And that's the quiet glory of this stage. You don't need to be seen anymore. You just need to keep going. So don't rush it. Don't look for shortcuts. Stay disciplined. Stay patient. Stay invisible until you're undeniable. Because one day, the same people who never noticed your effort will call you lucky. And when they do, you'll smile quietly, because you'll know. Luck was just the name they gave to years of invisible progress. But every season of progress eventually slows. And what's left isn't just discipline. It's the loneliness of momentum. The test that asks, will you keep moving when even the progress goes quiet? Chapter 5. The Unseen Hours. They'll only see the moment it all works. They'll only remember the day it all came together. But what they'll never see are the hours that no one was counting. The unseen hours. Where you built quietly, bled quietly, believed quietly. While everyone else was waiting for the right time, you were making time. While they were preparing to start, you were already halfway through. Because greatness doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens when no one's paying attention. You've lived in these hours. The 4 a.m. alarms. The nights where the world was sleeping. And you were wide awake with purpose. You learned to live without witnesses. You stopped needing applause to measure your worth. And that's when the real work began. The work that doesn't trend. The kind that builds things no one can take credit for. The unseen hours are quiet on the surface, but underneath, they roar. They're where habits are formed, where standards rise, where the voice inside you learns to whisper, I'm not done yet. Because the truth is, what you do when no one's watching is who you really are. And who you really are will always outlast who they think you are. You'll spend months, maybe years, doing work that looks like nothing. You'll look around and wonder if everyone else is moving faster. But what you won't see is how deep your roots are growing. How every repetition is a deposit in a future no one can see yet. Progress has a delay. And the unseen hours are where that delay becomes your advantage. These hours are lonely. They demand a kind of focus that leaves no room for noise. You'll lose people who don't understand. Why do you keep showing up for something that doesn't show up for you? But that's what makes it powerful. When no one claps, you clap for yourself. When no one believes, you build proof. When no one sees the effort, you remember that you're not doing it to be seen. You're doing it to become. The unseen hours reveal the truth about you. They expose the parts that talk too much, and strengthen the parts that just work. Every unseen hour rewrites your story, from dreamer to doer, from follower to founder, from waiting to becoming. This is where the transformation happens, not in a single moment, but in thousands of quiet ones stitched together by belief. There's something almost sacred about this stage. You start to understand why not everyone was meant to make it. Because most people don't want success. They want to be seen succeeding. They want the validation, not the repetition. They want the reward, not the routine. But builders learn to love the hours that no one counts. They stop chasing outcomes and start honoring the process. Every unseen hour is a mirror. It asks, how bad do you want it when no one's watching? And how you answer will determine everything. Because the world doesn't pay you for effort. It pays you for endurance. The unseen hours teach you to stop negotiating with your excuses. They teach you to stop asking for permission to be consistent. You stop performing the work and start working. This is what greatness feels like before it looks like greatness. Repetitive, quiet, uneventful. But that's the paradox. Every dull day in the dark is preparing you for the days that will define you. The same hours that feel wasted are the ones shaping your future. So don't despise the unseen hours. Protect them, guard them, live in them. Because they're building something even bigger than results. They're building rhythm, endurance, and peace. One day, you'll walk into the moment you've been building for. And everyone will call it your time. But you'll know the truth. Your time didn't come. You created it. 1 hour at a time. One silent morning after another. One choice to stay when quitting would have been easier. That's the secret. That's the unseen glory of all this. You were never just building a dream. You were becoming the kind of person who could handle it. But even in the unseen hours, there's a deeper kind of silence. The moment you realize that no one is coming to validate your work, that's when you learn to become your own witness. Chapter 6. Becoming your own witness. At first, you wait for someone to notice. To say, I see how hard you're working. But no one does. Days turn to weeks. Weeks turn to months. And slowly, you realize what every builder eventually learns. Validation doesn't come. You have to become it. You stop chasing witnesses and start becoming one. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone trying to prove, but as someone already becoming. Because there's a quiet kind of strength that grows when you no longer need the world to confirm your worth. At some point, you get tired of explaining your vision to people who don't understand it. You stop trying to convince them and start trying to become one. That's the shift. The moment you realize your life isn't meant to be a pitch. It's meant to be proof. You start to understand that your work doesn't need to be validated to be valuable. You just need to keep showing up. Becoming your own witness means learning to see the progress no one else can. It means celebrating steps that don't make sense yet. It's choosing to say, "I'm proud of me," even when the world stays silent. You start to notice things others overlook. How your reactions have changed. How your patience has grown. How you carry peace into rooms that used to make you anxious. That's growth. That's evidence. That's a witness. It takes courage to see yourself clearly, because the mirror doesn't lie. It shows your effort, your excuses, your evolution. But that's where real freedom begins. When you stop being afraid of your reflection. When you can look yourself in the eye and say, "I'm not perfect, but I'm better than before." That's a witness. That's grace. That's power. Becoming your own witness isn't about arrogance. It's about awareness. It's the moment you stop waiting for permission to feel proud of your progress. It's the day you stop begging the world to clap for work it was never meant to understand. Because the truth is, not everyone will get it. Your growth might offend their comfort. Your consistency might expose their excuses. But that's okay. You're not doing this for them. You're doing this for the version of you that refused to quit when no one cared. Every day you stay consistent is a day you testify to yourself. Every time you get up after failing, you write your own proof. Your resilience is evidence. Your peace is evidence. Your persistence is evidence. You don't need the crowd anymore. You have your own record, and it's written in discipline. Becoming your own witness teaches you to redefine success. It's no longer about the applause. It's about alignment. It's not about recognition. It's about revelation. You stop performing for the world and start living from your truth. You stop needing them to see you because you finally see yourself. And something powerful happens when you reach that space. Peace becomes louder than praise. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to keep walking. Because the ones who need noise to feel valid burn out fast. But the ones who've learned to witness their own becoming, they move in silence and still make waves. You start to realize that every failure, every lonely hour, every time you had to pick yourself back up, none of it was wasted. It all built something inside you that applause could never give. A quiet knowing, a deep calm, an unshakable belief that you are not who you were when you started. Becoming your own witness means you no longer wait to be seen. You live like someone already seen. You no longer chase proof. You are the proof. You no longer beg to be understood. You stand in your understanding. And that's when everything changes. Because once you've witnessed yourself, you can't go back to needing anyone else to. So keep moving. Keep showing up. Keep proving yourself to yourself. Because one day, you'll look back on these quiet hours and realize you were never waiting for applause. You were building the kind of life that speaks for itself. There comes a point when awareness isn't enough. You've seen yourself clearly. You've faced your truth. But now the question changes. Will you keep walking with it? Because knowing who you are means nothing if you stop moving when it gets heavy. And that's where the journey truly begins again. Not with excitement, but with endurance. Not with motivation, but with a single quiet choice. The decision to keep going. Chapter 7. The decision to keep going. There's a moment every builder meets. The quiet middle. Not the beginning where it's exciting. Not the ending where it's rewarding. But the middle, where it's just hard. You've been doing the work. You've shown up through the silence. Through the doubt. Through the hours that no one will ever remember. And yet, some nights, you wonder if any of this will ever be worth it. If the world will ever notice. That's when it happens. The moment that defines everything. Not the breakthrough. Not the victory. The decision to keep going. Most people think greatness is a feeling. It's not. It's a decision. To keep showing up. After your motivation leaves. To keep working. When results refuse to appear. You don't wait for energy anymore. You create it. You don't chase signs anymore. You become one. Because at some point, you realize that the dream doesn't need to get easier. You just need to get stronger. The middle of the journey is brutal. It's repetitive, quiet, and heavy. And every day, the same thought comes back. What if this isn't working? But that thought isn't a warning. It's a test. It's the moment where destiny asks, will you still move when the miracle hides? The truth is, no one escapes this season. Everyone faces it. But not everyone passes it. Because the ones who make it to the other side don't do it because they're smarter, luckier, or stronger. They do it because they decided to keep going. The decision to keep going isn't loud. It's a quiet whisper that says, not yet. I'm not done. It's the soft courage to keep taking steps when your faith starts limping. It's the resolve to believe, even when the evidence says otherwise. And sometimes, it's not even belief that keeps you moving. It's discipline. It's the muscle memory of commitment. Every builder hits this wall. The wall of fatigue. The wall of waiting. The wall of wondering if anyone even cares. But here's the truth. You don't keep going because it's easy. You keep going because you remember why you started. The dream that lit your heart once is still alive, just quieter now. You don't need to feel it every day. You just need to honor it. This is the season where purpose becomes heavier than passion, where your why carries you long after your want to fades. And that's when you learn the real meaning of courage. Not fire, not noise, but persistence in the face of stillness. The world calls it madness, but you call it alignment. Because deep down, you know quitting won't make it hurt less. It'll just make it hurt forever. So you breathe. You take another step. You do the next small thing you can control. And that's how you win. Not by speed. Not by talent. But by endurance. Because every empire, every success story, Every transformation was built by someone who kept moving, long after the excitement was gone. You learn that the decision to keep going isn't a one-time choice. It's 1,000 quiet decisions, stacked on top of each other. It's 1,000 mornings you didn't quit, 1,000 nights you kept believing, 1,000 times you whispered, "I'll try again tomorrow." That's how resilience is built, not by winning once, but by not quitting 1,000 times. Some people call it stubbornness. You call it survival. You've learned that giving up isn't an option, because the person you were when you started deserves to see what's possible. So you keep going. Not because you're fearless, but because you're faithful. You've learned that strength doesn't roar. It repeats. And one day, the weight will lift. The effort will connect. The darkness will open. Not because something magical happened, but because you didn't stop. That's the reward of those who endure. Clarity, confidence, and calm. They're not lucky. They're consistent. They just made one more decision than everyone else. To keep going. Something changes after you've decided to keep going. The weight doesn't disappear, but it stops feeling like punishment. You stop fighting the process and start thinking about the process. You no longer work for recognition. You work from conviction. That's when everything begins to shift. Because endurance creates perspective, and perspective creates power. This is where the real transformation happens. Not in your hands, but in your mind. The same mind that once doubted you begins to believe in the builder you've become. And that's where we go next. Into the mind of a builder. Chapter 8. The Mind of a Builder. There's a shift that happens after you've survived enough storms. You stop reacting to everything that moves. The noise still exists, but it no longer enters you, because you've seen too much to be shaken by small things. You fought too long to waste your peace on people still learning their lessons. That's what happens when the pain finally teaches you. Your mind becomes still, even when your life isn't. That's the mind of a builder. Calm under pressure, focused under fire, unmoved by noise. The builder's mind doesn't chase outcomes. It builds systems. It doesn't rely on motivation. It relies on rhythm. Because motivation is fragile. It depends on how you feel. Rhythm is reliable. It depends on who you've decided to be. The mind of a builder learns this the hard way, that your emotions can't be trusted with your destiny. In the beginning, you built to prove something. Now, you build because it's who you are. The builder doesn't work from inspiration anymore. They work from identity. Because once you understand that your actions are extensions of your mind, you stop chasing consistency and start becoming it. That's the real transformation. Not what you do, but how you think while you're doing it. The builder's mind is quiet, but it's not empty. It's strategic, intentional, sharp. It studies itself. It knows when to rest, when to retreat, when to rise. It doesn't panic at delays anymore, because it knows. Delays aren't denial. They're direction. Every pause has a purpose. Every setback carries a lesson. When your mind becomes your ally, life stops feeling like a fight. You stop forcing things. You start flowing with them. You no longer need everything to be perfect, because you've learned how to adapt. The builder doesn't need certainty to act. They just need conviction. And that conviction, it comes from all the dark rooms you've survived. Because the mind that's learned to think in the dark can build anything in the light. The mind of a builder is simple, but it's not small. It's focused, refined, free from the chaos of comparison. While others measure progress by what they can post, you measure it by how you feel when no one's looking. You've stopped racing. You've stopped proving. You've learned that stillness isn't weakness. It's wisdom in motion. You no longer need to explain your journey to those who haven't walked their own. You start protecting your peace like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. You realize that not everyone deserves access to your mind, because not everyone knows how to treat what's rare. The builder's mind doesn't argue with distraction. It ignores it. Because distraction feeds on attention, and you've learned to spend yours differently now. The mind of a builder is patient. It understands that progress isn't instant, but it's inevitable if you stay. You stop rushing seasons. You start respecting timing. You stop wishing for easier paths. You start praying for stronger legs. Because you've learned that peace isn't something you find. It's something you build through focus. When you reach this stage, you no longer need to prove you're strong. Your calm proves it for you. You no longer rush to defend yourself. You let your results speak. You no longer chase validation. You create proof. And that's what makes the builder's mind powerful. It's not loud, but it leads. It doesn't react. It responds. It doesn't complain. It is correct. It doesn't crumble. It calculates. This is the kind of strength that can't be taken from you. Because it's not built on people. It's built on perspective. When your mind is built, you don't fear losing anything. Because you know you can rebuild from nothing. That's the quiet confidence of the builder. The unshakable peace of someone who's done the work within. And when the world finally sees you, when the light hits what you've been building, they'll think it happened overnight. But you'll smile, because you'll know the truth. The work they see was only possible because of the mind they couldn't. And when your mind becomes strong, the need to speak disappears. Because eventually, your work begins to do the talking. You stop chasing recognition and start walking in quiet mastery. That's when the builder disappears and the work begins to speak. Chapter 9. When the work speaks. You reach a point where words aren't needed anymore. Not because you've run out of things to say, but because your results finally started saying them for you. You used to explain your silence. Now your peace explains itself. Because everything you've been building, all the hours you've spent in obscurity, are now beginning to form a sound of their own. The sound of proof. The sound of presence. The sound of work that finally speaks. People will look at you differently now. They'll wonder how you did it. They'll call it luck. They'll call it timing. But you'll know the truth. You'll know that it wasn't sudden. It was stacked. brick by brick, day by day, silence by silence. They see the shine, but they don't see the scaffolding. They see the result, but not the repetitions that made it possible. When the work begins to speak, you stop needing to defend it. Because truth doesn't argue. It demonstrates. You no longer chase applause, because applause is for the ones who need permission. You've learned that real validation doesn't come from attention. It comes from alignment. You stopped performing for approval and started producing from purpose. That's why your work now carries weight, because it came from wholeness, not hunger. The work that speaks isn't loud. It's consistent. It doesn't need to trend. It needs to last. Because longevity is louder than virality. You've learned that what matters most isn't being seen first. It's being seen forever. And you earn that through repetition, discipline, and faith. The quiet kind of faith. The one that keeps building, even when no one is watching. You used to explain your process. Now you let your progress explain you. You used to chase acknowledgement. Now you realize acknowledgement chases you. Because when your work carries truth, it travels further than you ever could. That's the beauty of creation. It becomes its own voice. It speaks for you, in rooms you haven't entered yet. The work that speaks isn't perfect. It's honest. It doesn't pretend to be more than it is. It's simply the evidence of someone who refused to stop. Because there's power in showing up flawed, but faithful. The world doesn't reward perfection anymore. It rewards persistence. And that's what your work carries now. Not polish, but presence. Not ego, but essence. When the work begins to speak, you don't chase the next thing. You honor the thing you've built. You stop running after more, and start stewarding what you already have. Because the goal was never fame. The goal was fulfillment. And now, you finally understand the difference. Fame fades when the noise shifts. Fulfillment stays when the meaning holds. You've built something that can stand on its own. That's the proof of all the lonely hours, the tired mornings, the quiet sacrifices. What once felt invisible, now feels inevitable. You're not waiting to be discovered anymore. You've already become undeniable. Because the moment your work starts speaking, your silence becomes sacred. You don't owe explanations anymore. You owe gratitude. And now, when people finally notice, you smile. Because they're only seeing the surface of something you've already survived. You don't need to prove your worth anymore. You built it. You don't need to beg for understanding. Your results have already spoken the language. And what they say is simple. You stayed. You built. You became. Because the world will look at your success and call it talent. But you'll know better. You'll know it wasn't a gift. It was a grind. You weren't born ready. You became ready. That's the truth they'll never see. You were built, not born. Chapter 10, Built, Not Born. They'll look at you one day and call it talent. They'll say you were born for this. But you'll know. You weren't born ready. You became ready. They'll see the shine, but not the shaping. The stage, but not the scaffolding. Because everything you are today was built in the dark. Not given, not gifted, built. You weren't born with discipline. You built it, one decision at a time. You weren't born with resilience. You forged it, in the silence of 1,000 uncelebrated days. You weren't born unshakable. You became that way, after being shaken too many times to count. The person you are now isn't the result of luck. It's the result of endurance. And the difference between the born and the built is simple. The builders know how to rebuild. You've fallen, but you didn't vanish. You failed, but you didn't fold. You kept showing up, with trembling hands, and a steady heart. You kept choosing purpose, over pride. Consistency, over comfort. That's what it means to be built. Because when life tore you apart, you didn't beg for the old pieces. You learned how to shape new ones. People think success is a spark. It's not. It's a slow burn. A sacred fire that teaches you how to stay. It's long nights, quiet mornings, and small, unseen decisions that no one applauds. Being built means learning how to keep moving, even when the applause never comes. Because the real builders don't chase noise. They chase meaning. They don't crave attention. They crave alignment. They don't seek to impress. They seek to endure. Being built means you've made peace with pressure. You've stopped asking life to be fair. You've learned to stop wishing for lighter loads and start training for stronger shoulders. You've accepted that discomfort isn't a punishment. It's proof of progress. Because no one grows in ease. We grow in effort. And you've earned every scar that now looks like strength. You don't need to explain the process anymore. You are the process. You've become the evidence of what patience looks like in human form. You've learned that pain doesn't disqualify you. It prepares you. That failure doesn't define you. It refines you. And that being built isn't about being perfect. It's about being prepared for what perfection can't handle. Being built means you've stopped rushing results. You understand that everything meaningful takes longer than you want it to, and costs more than you planned. But that's okay, because you've stopped measuring yourself by timelines. You measure yourself by tenacity. You've learned that the reward of building isn't what you get. It's who you become while getting it. And what you've become is steady, rooted, unmoved. You've become the kind of person who doesn't break at resistance. You rise through it. You've become the person you once prayed to meet. You no longer need inspiration to act. Your integrity acts for you. You no longer need permission to start. Your purpose gave you that long ago. You no longer need applause to continue. Your peace has become its own rhythm. That's what it means to be built. To stand in the same fire that once scared you, and see that it can't burn what's already forged. To walk through the same darkness that used to break you, and realize you are the light now. To face the same fear that used to freeze you, and smile. because you've outgrown it. When you're built, you stop chasing easy victories. You start building lasting ones. You stop needing things to happen fast. You start letting them happen right. You stop proving yourself. You start expressing yourself. And your life begins to look like what it always was. A masterpiece under construction. Because after all the building, all the waiting, all the work, there's one truth left. You don't chase the light anymore. You become steady enough for the light to find you. Chapter 11. The Light Finds You. You've spent years chasing light. Chasing the moment where everything finally makes sense. You thought peace would arrive once the pain ended. But now you know, peace arrives when you stop running. You don't have to chase clarity anymore. You've become it. You don't have to search for a purpose anymore. You've lived it. And you don't have to beg for the light to find you. Because now, you are what it's been looking for. The light doesn't rush to the loud. It moves toward the ready. And readiness isn't built through ease. It's built through endurance. You're not shining because life got better. You're shining because you did. The storms didn't stop. You just stopped fearing the rain. That's when the light finds you. When you no longer need it to fix you. It comes not to rescue you, but to reveal you. The light finds you. When you've stopped pretending. When you no longer hide your scars. Because you finally see them as proof. It finds you. When your silence stops being survival. And starts being strong. It finds you. When you stop explaining what hurt you. And start embracing what healed you. It finds you. When you start walking with peace. Instead of chasing it. That's how the light recognizes you. By your calm. By your truth. By your quiet power. You once thought the goal was to arrive. Now you know the goal was to align. You once thought you were waiting for something. Now you realize. You were becoming something. The light was never lost. It was waiting for you. To stand still long enough to be seen. Because light doesn't chase movement. It honors stillness. And the moment you stopped running from your life started running toward you. When the light finds you, you don't feel powerful. You feel peaceful. You realize power was never about control. It was about surrender. You no longer need to hold everything together. You just need to hold yourself with grace. You stop needing the world to understand your journey. Because you finally do. And that understanding brings something deeper than happiness. It brings harmony. The light finds you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're pure in intention. Because you've learned to choose progress over performance. Substance over style. Truth over applause. The light finds you. Because you've earned it. Because your heart is now a home it can live in. Because you've become the person you once prayed would come to save you. When the light finds you, you realize it was never chasing dreams. It was chasing discipline. It was never chasing noise. It was chasing peace. It was never chasing success. It was chasing sincerity. And now it sees it. In the way you wake. In the way you speak. In the way you build quietly. Without needing to prove anything anymore. That's when the light stays. Because it's found in reflection, not performance. You no longer need to fight for visibility. You just need to remain visible to yourself. Because what's real will always be revealed. And what's meant for you will never need to be forced. That's the gift of being built. Your alignment becomes attraction. And when you finally stop chasing what's meant for you, stop running, the light finds you, not at the finish line, but in the quiet in-between, when you've stopped trying to be seen, and started learning to simply be. It finds you when you let go of what you can't control, and pour your strength into what you can. It finds you when you stop waiting to feel ready, and start walking anyway. It finds you when you look back and realize every dark moment was leading you here. So when the light finally lands on you, stand still. Let it touch your face. Let it show you that it was never gone. It was guiding you, quietly, patiently, faithfully, through every step you took in the dark. Because the truth is, you never had to chase what was already meant to find you. And now it has. The light finds those who build in silence. It finds those who keep showing up when no one's watching. It finds those who stop waiting for the world and start becoming their own sunrise. And when it finally does, you'll understand. It was never about being discovered. It was about becoming undeniable. For those still in the dark, this is for the ones still building. For the ones still in the middle, still unseen, still unsure if the work will ever be worth it. It will. Because you already are. You don't have to see the whole picture yet. You just have to trust the brushstrokes. Every small action you take, every quiet choice to keep moving, it's all adding up. The dark doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're being shaped. Because before anything becomes visible, it's always built in the dark. Some days, you'll feel like you're starting over. Other days, like you're standing still. But both are part of the same progress. Both mean you're still becoming. So if it's heavy right now, if the work feels endless, if no one seems to notice, breathe. You're not behind. You're just early. Every strong foundation was once poured in silence. Every masterpiece was once made of mess. You're not failing. You're forming. And maybe no one claps right now, but they will. Not because you need their applause, but because your consistency will become undeniable. One day, the light will touch what you've been building. And everything that didn't make sense will suddenly align. The years you thought you lost will become the reason you're ready. The pain you thought broke you will become the power that builds others. The silence that scared you will become the peace that sustains you. So keep going. Keep showing up. Even if it's slow. Even if it's small, even if it's just one more brick today. Because the world doesn't need another loud dreamer. It needs quiet builders, the ones who do the work, even when no one's watching. And that's what you are becoming. If you're still in the dark, this is not your ending. This is your becoming. The light isn't late. It's aligning. And one day soon, you'll look around and realize you've built something worth standing in. Not just a dream, not just a plan, but a life. Because that's what the dark was for. Not to destroy you, but to design you. To teach you what strength really is. What faith really feels like. And when the light finally finds you, you won't need to explain it. You'll just smile, because you'll know what it cost. So to every soul still building quietly, still believing privately, still standing when it would be easier to sit, you are seen. You are not late. You are not lost. You are becoming. And one day, when the world finally catches up to what you've been creating, they'll call it destiny. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't destiny. It was discipline. You weren't found. You were built. This has been built in the dark. For those who keep building, even when no one claps. Because one day, they will. If this message spoke to you, share it. Subscribe. Keep listening. This is Beyond the Noise Studio.